If you've been diagnosed with Meniere's disease, there's a good chance you've been told you need to be following a low sodium diet. Problem is, sodium or salt has a lot of flavor, and we like it to accentuate the flavor of food. So the challenge with Meniere's disease is, how do I follow a low sodium diet but not a low flavor diet? Well, in this video, I'm going to share with you some information about salt substitutes, things that you should and maybe shouldn't be using so that you can have a safe diet but not a low flavor diet if you've got Meniere's disease. So let's get into it. So why do we even care about sodium or salt as it relates to Meniere's disease? Well, in Meniere's disease, you have a problem with excess fluid accumulation or endolymphatic hydrops. We could talk about it differently, but that's basically what happens. So you get a swelling in the inner ear. And the problem is, wherever sodium goes, water follows. So the idea is that by eating a diet that's high in sodium, you increase the odds that you're going to get more water and fluid accumulation essentially in your inner ear. That's also the logic behind taking a diuretic. Now, I have made another video that talks all about sodium, especially as a trigger for Meniere's disease attacks, and I'll put the link in here so you guys can go watch it. That's why we care about sodium. But as I said a minute ago, salt makes things taste good. That's why we use salt, because it accentuates flavors. But we're at a kind of a crossroads when it comes to Meniere's disease, because you really do need to be following a low sodium diet, because for most people with Meniere's, it really does make a difference. So let's just talk for a second about salt and sodium. You know, the US RDA for sodium is around 2,800 milligrams per day. Now, the average person gets about 3,400 milligrams per day. And in Meniere's, though, a low sodium diet is, the way I do it, I try to get people at 1,500 milligrams per day or less. So that's a big difference. So we're going to have to make up that gap in flavor someplace. Now, it is interesting to point out that about 70% of the sodium that you get on a daily basis is from eating out. Only about 10% is what you get from your home food. So when you have Meniere's disease, eating out, that's a lot more dangerous, because eating out, out food, restaurants foods are usually heavily salted, because salt makes things taste good. So if regular salt is not okay, what about alternative salts? Well, I think you're going to find this very interesting. If you look at how much sodium is in a quarter teaspoon of these different salts, I think you might be a little bit surprised. Sea salt has about 560 milligrams of sodium per quarter teaspoon. Okay, 560 milligrams per quarter teaspoon. Himalayan pink salt has around 590 per quarter teaspoon. Now that may be surprising to you, right? And what about iodized salt? Well, iodized, like table salt, has right around 590 milligrams of sodium per quarter teaspoon. Not a lot of difference in those. So the first thing you got to know is, just by using Himalayan pink salt or sea salt, you're not really following a low sodium diet. It's about the total amount of sodium you're getting per day. So those really aren't great choices unless you are really keeping a close watch and a close count. And what about herb-based seasoning? So these don't have salt in them at all. These are things like garlic powder and onion powder and black pepper, lemon juice, lime juice. Those can all be used to give you the flavor that you're looking for, but without the sodium. Mrs. Dash, for example, is a completely salt-free, sodium-free seasoning, and it's just herbs. Okay? Now, the other thing I think that can work really well for you folks that have Meniere's, and I see lots of Meniere's patients that are on a low sodium diet, but you're looking for not a low flavor diet, is to use something like hot sauces. Now, a little kind of a caveat with this. Now, when I'm talking about hot sauces, I'm talking things like Tabasco, Cholula, Tapatio, Louisiana Hot Sauce. Let me break down the amount of sodium in those for you using the same unit, that quarter teaspoon, right? So Tabasco has about 9 milligrams of sodium per quarter teaspoon. Okay, great. Cholula, the original, has about 28 milligrams per quarter teaspoon. Tapatio has about 28 milligrams per quarter teaspoon. And Louisiana Hot Sauce, unfortunately, has about 50 milligrams of sodium per quarter teaspoon. Now, it doesn't mean you can't use them, but those have a lot more flavor, let's say, than some of the regular salts, which are much higher in sodium. So what do you do with this information? Well, the first caveat I want to say is, if you're one of my patients and you're watching this, I'm not telling you to use those hot sauces, because there's some potential peppers, nightshades kind of things. But if you're just out here and you've got Meniere's, you're on a low sodium diet, but you're looking for something for flavor, probably your best choice are things like herb-based seasonings, like we mentioned a second ago, Mrs. Dash being one of them that you can just buy off the shelf, or try one of these different hot sauces. But you're still going to have to kind of count and be careful with your portions. Now remember, sodium, excess sodium, is inflammatory in its own right. It can increase swelling. So you still want to be following a low sodium diet. So make sure you're working with someone that understands all the nuances about Meniere's. I certainly have a lot of videos on my channel. You can learn a lot. And hopefully whoever you're working with knows all the stuff that we're talking about. But I think this is going to give you a good list of some low sodium but not low flavor substitutes that you can follow when you're on that low sodium diet. I hope you guys found that helpful. I'll see you next time.